Alright, today we're going to talk about multiplying decimals by 10, 100, and 1,000. Go ahead and get your notebook out or Notability and get down your title. Your I can statement today is I can mentally multiply decimals by 10, 100, and 1,000. Pause the video if you need more time to go ahead and get this written down, but we're going to get right into this. I know that we've already multiplied by whole numbers. So if we had the number 32 and I multiplied it by 1, our answer for that, of course, with using the identity property, is going to be 32. So the same goes for decimals. If I had 3 and 2/10 times it by 1, it's going to come up to the same thing, 3 and 2/10. Because of the identity property. Okay, so we talked about the identity property. We're going to look at the number 3.2 again. And this time, instead of multiplying by 1, we're going to actually multiply by 10. Now, we've learned the process for this, just like if I were to use 32. Notice I do not have to line up my decimal. My decimal on the 10 is hanging out here. My decimal on the 32 is hanging out here. But over here on 3.2, here's my decimal. Here's my decimal. When I multiply decimals, I do not have to line up the decimal. So if I were to do this 32 times 10, I would say, oh, okay, well, there's 1 0, so I'm going to drop that down. And 1 times 2 and 1 times 3, I would have 32. Just like that. It's similar here when we multiply by decimals, but what we're actually doing is moving our decimal place based on how much we're multiplying by. So when we multiply by tens, 100s, or 1,000, we are moving our decimal place. If we're multiplying, we're getting bigger. So our decimal, we have 1 0 here. Our decimal in this number is going to move 1 time. We do the same thing over here because the number started out at 32. We had 1 0 here. We took that decimal that was hanging out ninja style and we moved it over once. And now it's 320. So here we could just drop down the 32. Our decimal is hanging out right here in the number 3.2, but we have 1 0, so we're going to go boop and move it right over here. So my new number that I've come up with is 32. When I take 3.2 and times it by 10, I'm going to get 32. The 3.2 got bigger because I'm multiplying it. So when I multiply it by 10, I just moved it 1 spot over. So the same is going to be true if I take 3.2 and times it by 100. I don't even have to line it up vertically because all I'm doing is moving the decimal. I'm taking 3.2 and I'm timesing it by 100. Well, if we look, I count my zeros. I have 1, 2 zeros. How many spots will the decimal move? It will move 2 spots. So as we look at the number 3.2, our decimal is sitting right here in between the 3 and the 2. So we're going to take, and that decimal will move 2 spots because there's 2 zeros. 1, 2. It's going to move so that the number gets bigger from 3.2 to now 320. This is our answer to 3.2 times 100. We move the decimal, boop, boop, and there we go. This would also be true of the number 3.2 times 1,000. We're using the same number so you could see how it moves. Well, if we're multiplying by 1,000, we have 3 zeros. That means our decimal spot is going to move 3 places. So we start here, same number, but we have to take the decimal and move it 3 spots. 1, 2, 3. You'll notice that those spots open up and we have to fill them with something. So we just fill them in with zeros. This decimal is gone. It is now sitting out here. It moved 3 spots. It is no longer a part of the number. So our answer to 3.2 times 1,000 is 3,200 with our decimal hanging out there ninja style. Okay, make sure you have this written down in your notebook. We're going to try a different kind of number. This one we have the decimal before the number. This is representing 62 hundredths. So we're going to take that and we're going to multiply it by 10. I know in the past your teachers have said, hey, you have a 0, just write your 0 down. But in fact, because we're multiplying by decimals, we are moving the decimal. And each time your teacher said, hey, just throw that 0 down, you were still moving the decimal. It was just an imaginary decimal. So we're going to use 0.62 times 10, and I already showed you that it has 1 0. 1 0 right here, that 1 0. So that means I'm going to move my decimal how many times? I'm going to move this 1 time. But I want to make the number 0.62 bigger. When I multiply, my numbers get bigger. I want to make this bigger. So my decimal is going to move to the right to make this bigger. So we have 1 spot. My number still is 6, has a 6 and a 2 in it. But the decimal that started right here is going to move 1 spot to now sit in between the 6 and the 2. So no longer do we have 0.62. Now we have 6.2. So here, when we times by 100, I have 2 zeros. My decimal is going to move 2 times. We're still going to have 62 because I have 6 and a 2 here, but it's all about where the decimal is going to go. If it starts before and it needs to move 2 times, 1, 2, it's going to end up right back here. No longer do we have the decimal in the front. We have it all the way in the back. And now my number is 62. Then last but not least, we're going to multiply by 1,000. By 1,000 we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. My decimal is going to move 3 spots. So I'm still going to have 6 and a 2. Boom. Same. My decimal starts here. And it's going to go 1, 2, 3 spots. And what do I fill in the blank there with? Another 0. So now my decimal is hanging out there at the very end. And if it really wanted to, it could be hanging out ninja style if you wanted to call it that. Because really we don't have to put it in there. It does not have to go there at the end. But it means 620 because we multiplied it by 1,000. Okay, so let's try this one. If I had 0.946 times 100. How many zeros do you have? Boop, boop. You will move your decimal how many spots? That's right, it's 2 spots. So this decimal that's out here, it's going to go 1, 2, and I'm going to get the new number of 9, 4, boop, 6, 3. All right, we're going to have a secret word today, but you need to remember it all the way until the next math time. It's an important word. The important word is kindness. Kindness. But here's how you're going to tell me this word. Sometime on Tuesday, You have to work kindness into your conversation. It has to be a part of a sentence. I will not do anything if I just come in on Tuesday and you're like, oh, the word is kindness. Nope. You will lose out on that. Okay? So, you got to use it in a sentence like, man, Haley really showed kindness when she picked up somebody's trash at lunch. That would work. Now, should you use that exact sentence? Probably not. All right, good luck. Go on to Schoology, and you're going to download your worksheet, or you will have a paper copy at the rainbow table. Happy mathing!